I just got back from Washington, D.C. a couple days ago, and I thought I would do a Washington, D.C. book haul of what I bought while I was there, which was generally from a lot of museums and a Barnes& and Noble that I hit up while I was on vacation. The thing with buying books while you're on vacation and having to go on a flight, all I could take was one like carry-on personal thing. So everything, including what I was wearing, all my stuff had to go in a backpack, which had to fit under the seat. So that took some creative effort, and I was sort of impressed with how much I was able to actually fit into the backpack on the way back as well. So I will go through my book haul here. From the Barnes& and Noble, I ended up getting Dracula's Child by J.S. Barnes. I'd not heard of this one before. It is supposed to be about Mina and Jonathan's son, who seems to have curious vampire qualities to him. It's done in epistolary style, which is actually kind of what interests me, because that's really what I like about Dracula to begin with, is that it's a style written in letters. This one is too. The biggest thing about this one that made me debate about whether I got it or not is it's so chunky. This one was the hardest to try to figure out how to fit into the backpack. So there was a horror novel from the DC Barnes & Noble. From the Smithsonian gift shop, I ended up getting How the States Got Their Shape Too, which is basically more, I believe, about the people who were shaping the states rather than about the shapes of the states themselves. So this one is more of a historical look at who was involved in how we got our boundary lines between the states and who sort of did what. So this was... I was really kind of unimpressed with the Smithsonian gift shop. It's very, I hate to say generic, but it is. It was the American History Museum, let me put it that way, because there's so many Smithsonian museums. But it was very generic, and basically most of the stuff I could have bought anywhere. But I hated to not get something from the Smithsonian, so I ended up just getting this book. Also from the Barnes & Noble, I ended up getting True Crime Collection Cold Cases by Chana Roth. This is unidentified serial killers, kidnappings, murders, that sort of thing. So it's basically unsolved cases. This one also came from the Barnes & Noble. From the International Spy Museum, I got Codename Madeline. This was about a Sufi spy who worked for MI6 and was in France during World War II, who ended up eventually being executed, but was a very, very successful spy while she was over there, and sort of was kind of forgotten for a while, but this particular woman has become kind of gone down with some of the other well-known female spies within wars and different things. So this is about Noor Khan, who I actually had heard about before, and kind of what she had done. At the Lincoln Memorial, I got Lincoln's Body, which is a cultural history. It really kind of hits on a bunch of different things about his legacy and sort of movies, books, all sorts of different things that have been kind of circled around Lincoln after his death, and what kind of a cultural icon he is, and how that's all kind of been a thing, and how we all kind of value him differently and look at him in different ways, and how that's changed over time, and sort of how we do all that. So that one came from the Lincoln Memorial, which has a gift shop in the side. I didn't realize that. I've been to the Lincoln Memorial I don't know how many times, and I didn't realize there was a gift shop in the one end. This one also came from the Spy Museum. It's Femme Fatale by about Mata Hari. This book is by Pat Shipman. This is basically trying to sort of unravel the mystique around Mata Hari, who had this image as a woman who was a double agent and used her feminine wiles basically to trick men was sort of for financial gain was sort of the idea, and eventually was executed. But there's always been sort of this aura around her based off of the, I guess, the exotic dancer part of her that sort of everyone kind of fixated on. Sex sells, and this was one of those things that just became intriguing about this woman who she was, and the fact that she used that as a kind of way to get information and trick men. It will be interesting to see what this is supposed to be a much more, not intellectual, but a much more scholarly look at her rather than just sort of trying to go off the exploitative side of who she was. This one also came from the Spy Museum, Book of Honor, Secret Lives and Deaths of CIA Operatives by Ted Gupp. This one is looking at people who were involved in CIA stuff who ended up dying on mission. So it is kind of a diverse bunch of biographies that are in here. This is also a Spy Museum book. How the Post Office Created America. This one was from the Smithsonian Postal Museum, which was probably one of the best museums I've been to. I've heard people say that about the Postal Museum, but I had never been there, and I decided to go this time. And I can't say enough about how good of a museum it was. This came from their gift shop and goes into detail about how integral the post office and mail has been in the history of America. And that in general is kind of the gist of the whole Postal Museum, which is really cool. It has a lot of really, really cool stuff there. They have the mailer that the Hope Diamond was sent in. The guy just sent it in like this manila envelope looking thing with a bunch of postage on it. Actually even put the address of the Smithsonian wrong. It got there, but the Hope Diamond was shipped basically in a big manila envelope and just had Fragile written on the outside with some stamps. So it's stories like that. We went around lunch, and one of the docents was giving a tour, and that is something nice that they have there, that you can go on the docent tour. They're free, and you get to see some of the highlights of the stuff and hear some of the stories that you might not be aware of otherwise that you would get to do. But this one came from the Post Office Museum, Postal Museum, and is about the history of the post office. And the last one, so you can see how many I fit in my bag. This was also a trial to fit in my bag because it's very, very heavy, and it's kind of oddly shaped. Haunted Road Atlas. This one came from Barnes & Noble. Again, this is by Christine Schaefer and M. Scholes. And they have a podcast called This Is Why We Drink. And this is a book about haunted places kind of that they've traveled to around the world. It's something I had wanted to buy for a while and finally saw it in person there at the Barnes & Noble, so I just ended up having to buy it. This one was also a trial to get in that backpack. Also keep in mind that this backpack I had to carry around Arlington the rest of the day because we went straight from leaving the hotel to going to Arlington before we went to the airport, so I had to tote a very, very heavy backpack around for better part of an afternoon, which was like I was hiking, only I was at Arlington. So that was my book haul from DC, and it was a pretty big one considering I pretty much had to physically tote this everywhere after I bought it all. But I'm looking forward to getting into some of these because they are pretty cool and kind of relate to what I was seeing there as well.